How's it going, super friends? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Brad, the DC Universe Geek. If it's your first time here, thank you for checking out this channel. Today, I want to talk about Titans, that really cool DC show on the DC Universe streaming site. Now, you might not like the show, you might love the show. This is just going to be my perspective and what I've noticed from the show and what I think about it and how it might fit into the overall DC universe and how I think other things may or may not be able to springboard from this show. Before we get into that, I just want to send a great big thank you to everyone who submitted a question to Jason Langston, the former Mattel employee who has had his intelligence and fingers and input and fandom all through the DC Multiverse line. The Lex Luthor wave, he's had his fingers all through that, and the forthcoming Lobo wave, he's had his hands and his input all in that wave as well. He's a DC fan just like the rest of us, and he's been kind enough to come on the channel and answer some questions for you super friends. I was going to make a video just asking you guys to submit some questions, but it's going so well. You guys are already asking so many great questions in the previous video, which admittedly I've let sit on the channel so that some questions could accumulate. I don't really feel the need to make a second video asking you folks to ask Jason a question. So a big fat thank you to everyone who submitted a question to Jason. We will be able to get to it at a time that matches his schedule and mine, but your questions will get answered as much as possible. We might not have a chance to get to all of them, but we will definitely pick the best questions and try to answer them. And now let's talk about Titans. As I've mentioned, I finally have had the chance to digest the first 5 episodes of Titans. I went into it trying not to have any preconceived notions or ideas of what the series was going to be like, nothing at least beyond what we've already seen. We all know that trailers that have show footage can depict the show in one way, but the show actually ends up being slightly different or vastly different as far as storytelling and tonality goes. So I really went into it with an open mind saying, let's just observe this as a piece of filmography, as a piece of storytelling, and a piece of character development involving characters that I'm pretty well familiar with. So to start with, this ain't your kids' Titans. And I'm sure we all knew that, but this really isn't your kids' Titans. The show Titans doesn't stray away from dark topics, very adult-oriented storytelling. There's definitely a fair helping of cuss words and blood and violence. And I think, again, we all already knew that, judging by the very first trailer that was released, watching Robin kick the snot out of those goons in the alleyway. There was a little bit of, did Robin just shoot someone? That kind of contention. And when you watch the first episode, you realized, no, he definitely didn't actually shoot anybody. But that doesn't mean that this Robin is not a brutal Robin, at least at this stage in his character development. The show is dark. The show is gritty. And if you're going into this show hoping for it to be anything like the new Teen Titans series or any of the Titans, really, any of the Titans or Teen Titans series, you're really not going to find that here. I've segmented this in my mind as just another spot, another place in the multiverse with events going on in their own timeline. I've compartmentalized it as its own thing. The comics will always be the comics, and the show is free to do its own thing. But it's really like, in the same way with the Black Label, they were like, this is definitely our grown-up side of things, because we're going to show the Batwang. Out of the gate, they're really trying to show you that this is not your kids' Teen Titans. This is not your kids' Titans of any kind. This really is a show aimed at, designed, marketed for, and to grown-ups, an adult audience. Seriously, these are superheroes that don't shy away from using the F word and other foul language. This is a Dick Grayson who has absolutely no problem dragging someone's face across some shards of glass or across a brick wall or chucking his little Robin Ninja Star shuriken right into somebody's eyeball. Starfire, who has lost her memory, has no problem incinerating people. This show is very, very violent. I'm talking, spoiler, Raven's mom gets shot in the head in the first episode and there's brain matter on the floor. This is dark, but I love it. And the cinematography for this show, it really presents itself more like a high-grade film rather than a high-grade television show. This is movie-quality cinematography and color grading. And same thing with the soundtrack. The soundtrack is so beautifully done. They put the right songs in the right place, and it creates the moods so perfectly. Also, the way that the show introduces its characters, first its main four, and then onward to other characters who would be guest stars, like Hawk and Dove, and then later the Doom Patrol. It's not forced. I don't feel like they're just pushing everyone in. I kind of feel like it just has this very cool, very natural flow. Like, oh, we're going to Beast Boy's home, and here's the Doom Patrol. Oh, we're going to slip Hawk and Dove into Dick Grayson's history, and here they are. And the whole thing just seems to fit together well. And the show does a very good job of saying, hey, this is a universe where it's more than just these four characters that exist, but this is the DC universe at large. Also, I find that the character development for this show is coming along really nicely by the end of the first 5 episodes. Starting with Dick Grayson's storyline, we have a character who is highly conflicted within himself, and he's left Gotham, and he's came to Detroit. He's trying to leave that all behind. He wants to make a difference, so he's now a detective rather than a vigilante crime fighter, and he feels like in the persona of Robin, he does things that he wouldn't usually do. He feels like behind the mask, he's a little bit more violent than he would be, and he likes it. And he wants to get away from that, and he wants to still make a difference fighting crime, but he doesn't want to do it with the mask anymore, although he is highly conflicted, and he still does do it with the mask. That's where the alleyway scene first starts with. And every episode does have him donning the Robin suit for some length of time, having some Robin antics. It's not like there's no Robin in this, but he's definitely very highly conflicted. And so Robin, just having come out from underneath the bat, is on this journey of self-discovery and trying to find his place in the world as a crime fighter. As Robin, he can do anything. And maybe that's what he's afraid of. We're seeing that Dick Grayson needs this new team as the next stage in his own personal character development. And then we have Raven, whom the story also very largely revolves around, because really she is more or less not the central character, which is Dick Grayson, but her story really is the story that all the rest of the stories kind of revolve around. She is a very big part of the Titans show. She doesn't know who she is on the inside. She just knows that she doesn't trust it. She knows that it's very dangerous, and she's afraid to unleash. And she doesn't even know who her father is. I mean, we know who her father is, but she doesn't know who her father is at this point. She just knows that all kinds of people keep trying to get her and abduct her and do who knows what with her. She has no idea. She's a scared girl that essentially is coming into her own, learning that she does have these abilities. They can be used for good, and she doesn't need to be afraid of them, but rather embrace them. And we do begin to see some of that by episode 5, as the group begins to come together as a team. And then Starfire's story is one of self-discovery in a very literal sense. We're introduced to Starfire. She wakes up in a car that's crashed on the side of the road. The car's totaled, and there's a dead stiff in the seat next to her, and she has no memory of who she is or any of that stuff. She's literally on a journey of self-discovery, as in, who am I? And so throughout the story, she's given a little bit more every episode of who she is and what she was doing, but she still literally has no memory. She doesn't know that she's from Tamaran, that she's Tamaranian. And then we have Beast Boy's story, which so far by episode 5 is the least fleshed out. We learn how he gets his powers. We learn that he's been living in this mansion, basically under wraps with the Doom Patrol, sneaking out and doing things, but really he's supposed to be at the mansion with the rest of them. Negative Man, with Elastigirl, with Robot Man, and he wants to go out and see the world, and him being with the rest of the initial Titans, who are technically not called Titans yet, with Rachel, Dick, and Corey on this journey, I think that for him, this is a journey of just experiencing the world. Because he really is a free spirit, and being with them enables him to go out and do stuff and be a part of something. His is the story that is, in my opinion, so far the least fleshed out. It's the least examined. But on all cases, I feel like the character development is coming along really, really well. I think that the show is well written. I think that it's filmed well. I think that the sound accompaniment with the show is spot on. I feel like this show really has some great potential, and I don't know how many seasons we're going to see of it, but I'm really hoping that we do manage to get at least 3 seasons out of this show before they move on to something else. And in my opinion, not knocking any of the CW shows out there because they really are their own thing. They do things in their own way. Watching Titans, this sort of show is more akin to the kind of thing that I would watch. They give you just enough every episode that you go, ah, there's a mystery, it's solved. But they also go, here's some stuff that you don't know, and they add to it every single episode. And I watched all 5 episodes like it was nothing. Whereas even with Supergirl, a show that I really like, after 2 episodes, I'm kind of done for a little while. Now, the final thing I wanted to talk about actually is the idea of the future in the DC Universe and how this show, Titans, their first live-action show that they're showing us, how that sets it all up. Well, we know the Justice League exists in the Titans universe because it's been mentioned, and more characters, as we've all seen, like Jason Todd and Donna Troy, we know that they exist in the universe. So I think, my opinion, that we will likely see Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and all those characters end up on the streaming service. I'm calling it now, that eventually we will see a live-action Batman show just like the Titans, and that we may even see a Justice League show and possibly a Superman show and all that kind of stuff. I would love to see a live-action Batman show produced on the DC Universe streaming site, because then DC can do it all themselves. They're not beholden to another studio's ideas. They can do it all themselves on their own streaming site with their own licensed characters. I think that that's something that, at this day and age, would make the most sense. In my opinion, the way that DC should be handling their movies and shows is save the theaters for stuff that is really top-end CG stuff, kind of like the trailer for DC Universe Online. We can do way better than that now. Instead, we should be having our movies produced with likenesses of the characters in their most ideal, comic-accurate look that, you know, kind of would please everybody, but then they don't age. We've seen Robert Downey Jr. age a decade in the Marvel Universe. I mean, he's not getting any younger. Well, if these characters have all been digitally made, we don't have to worry about aging, and we can just use those characters continually. So DC, in my opinion, should be doing full feature-length CG movies that are released in the theaters. I think they could do very, very well. And then they should be saving their live-action stuff, in my opinion, for the streaming service, because then they can do all that live-action stuff, they can handle it all themselves, and DC themselves has the final say, and they're not beholden to another studio's ideas of what they will and will not do. It can all be handled and written and created and costumed in-house. And that means they can have all of their characters written coherently to exist in one universe with no continuity problems. Well, I wouldn't go as far as no continuity problems. DC's had their fair share of in-house continuity problems with their comics, but you get my point, right? We wouldn't have this whole X-Men and Fantastic Four, you know, owned by one company because the licensing rights, and then you have Spider-Man and Venom over here, and then you have Captain America and Iron Man over here, and Hulk off in limbo. It's just a mess. Oh, and yes, I got a ding on my forehead. I banged my head yesterday, and it kind of hurts. But anyway, those are my thoughts about the Titans TV show. I really didn't want to give that many spoilers. I want you to watch it yourself. For those of you who have seen the show, you'll understand what I'm talking about with the things that I'm saying. I don't think the show's perfect, but I do think it's a very, very good attempt at doing their own thing without the strings being attached to the comic books and current comic continuity. They can kind of do their own thing, but I personally think it is the very best DC Comics television show that has been made so far. And I've seen them all, and I really, really like it, and I can't wait until the entire first season comes full circle and I know the entire story, because they are really doing something cool with this show. And if you haven't seen it, I really highly recommend you watch it, because in my opinion, it is worth every minute of your viewing. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time to do so. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, ding the bell so that you get notified, and I will see you with the next one. Have an awesome day, super friends. Take care.